All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to part 2 of the AutoCAD 2009 upgrade training. Again, my name is David Zvislin, your friendly CAD manager here at Nolte Associates. Hopefully everybody who attended last week will be able to watch this session this week. I'm going to kind of go through it pretty quick because like last week I have a lot of material to cover and I want to make sure that we're able to get through it all. Want to start out just briefly here and just review what we did talk about last week. We discussed file compatibility, and one of the questions I did get last week was about Land Desktop, and was that a part of Civil 3D or is it still a separate product? What's going on with Land Desktop? It is a separate product that installs with Civil 3D, but you can only purchase it with Civil 3D. So at Nolte, we do have our Civil 3D on subscription, which gives us an equal number of Land Desktop licenses as we do Civil 3D, so we can run it in either application. We are upgrading to the 2009 version of Civil 3D and Land Desktop, and this will be the last version of Land Desktop according to Autodesk. So when they come out with 2010, in a month, there will only be a Civil 3D application. There will no longer be Land Desktop. So that gives us here at Nolte about 2 years to get you all retooled and retrained and ready to be working in Civil 3D by the time the 2011 version is installed and deployed. So just kind of take care of that. Little question there and make sure everybody understands that. Last week we also reviewed the interface. We looked at the quick properties command. We looked at the layer dialog, some of the new layer tools like layer notification that you got a warning when you opened up a drawing that had XREFs with new layers. Wanted to show you Action Recorder, didn't have time, so I'm going to start that out today with Action Recorder, and then we finished up last week with XREF clipping, and just kind of wanted to remind you of that. All right, for today's session, we're going to start off with a couple from last week that I didn't get to, and I'll briefly show you some of the new 3D viewing tools in 2009. We will take a look at the Action Recorder tool. We'll look at Annotative Text and dimensioning. Along with that, we'll look at some of the new multi-leader functions. We'll look at Mtext enhancements, some brief things that they've added to the Mtext tools. We'll look at a couple of new dimension features. We'll look at tables, some of the enhancements for tables, and if I have time, I'm optimistic here, we will look at the PDF extension that's included with Civil 3D 2009. That tool, if I don't get to it, what it allows you to do, it's got a new PDF plot driver that generates a much more compact, higher resolution PDF file that you can also include layer information directly from AutoCAD, and it also has a PDF underlay functionality which lets you reference and view PDF images right inside your AutoCAD drawing. So I can attach a PDF file just like I can an XREF DWG file, or maybe more similar to the DWF format from Autodesk. So if I don't have time to get to that, that one is one item maybe we'll do as brown bag lunches later on. All right, so that's it for the PowerPoint. So let me jump into my AutoCAD, and let me wait for my screen to refresh here. All right, so we're starting off in AutoCAD. One of the things I want to remind you all is the handouts for this class is available through the CAD support page. So I'm going to go into that website here, and it would help if I had that on my screen. And it's going to be this CAD Workstation 2009 upgrade document. So let me click on that. And the reason I want to show you this is I'm not demonstrating everything that's in the upgrade. I'm only showing you what I feel are some of the key features. So if we come in here, say, look at new command enhancements, we showed last week quick properties, but let me kind of scroll down. Example, here's one I really like that we don't have time to show right now, is I can export a layout to model space, and I think the only people who really will appreciate this is anyone that needs to convert drawings from AutoCAD to the older Caltrans MicroStation V7 format where there was no such thing as paper space. And this actually will take an entire layout and the viewports, export it to a new drawing, clip all of the entities on the original viewport boundaries, and put it all in model space. So a real neat little tool, but I don't have time to show that. Some other items in here. There's an item called geographic location, and one thing I want to highlight because I get asked all the time is how do I turn off this little icon thing here that shows up on my screen? That's called the Geo Marker. That is used by AutoCAD to keep track of your geographic locations. So when you want to use the sun for casting shadows when you do your 3D visualization, you know you have a geographic location. Well, you use this Geo Marker visibility variable, you set it to 0, and that will turn it off. So I do encourage you to go through here, look at these. Again, like I said last week, as I work on these, I will add more and more recording to those. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of those. All right, to the demo part now. So hang on, here we go. I got 51 minutes to get through all this, so I'm going to go as quick as I can here. I'm going to start off, we're going to look at some of the 3D viewing tools in AutoCAD 2009. So the drawing I have is a Civil 3D drawing. It's a existing surface model, a corridor model, and then I've built a top surface of my corridor. So that's our yellow surface here. So let me zoom out just a little bit. And hopefully everybody's used to using the orbit command. So let me go ahead and click on that. And we'll go into orbit, and we're used to being able to spin it around and use orbit to change the way our view looks. Okay, and what I want to show is just some of the new features in 2009 for manipulating our display. All right, one of them becomes available when I change my visual style to one of the 3D visual styles. So if I use the 3D wireframe, hidden, realistic, or conceptual visual style, we're going to get what's called the Viewcube. So let me go into conceptual mode here. And I apologize, the video driver on my laptop does a terrible job at this resolution rendering surface models. So my existing ground surface, I get all those black lines all over it, and I have yet figured out the setting to control that. So we do find on the workstations with a better video card, a little bit more video memory, you get a little bit better performance on here. All right, so I've got my model, and what you'll see is up in the upper right corner of your window, you get this item here called the Viewcube. And the way this works is you'll see as I move my mouse around it, different segments or corners or edges will highlight. So what I can do is, say I want to view it from a 90-degree angle to the right, I can click on this upper edge here, and it will switch me to that view. Okay, and I can keep clicking on these edges, and it will keep spinning me around on my site. Okay, maybe I want to look at left view, so I'll click on left, and I can pop into a left view. And if I want to go back to top view, I can click on this little arrow on the top of the viewer, and it takes me back to top view. And I've got my angle off by 90 degrees, so I can pick on either of these arrows here in the upper corner, and that will rotate me in a 90-degree increment. So I can use it to move to preset isometric locations. All right, let me go back to a 3D view here from the southeast. All right, I can also pick and grip on this to change my view. So say I grab on one of the letters here on my compass, it will lock it in that plane, and as I spin my mouse or move my mouse, I can spin it back and forth in that plane. Okay, I can also pick anywhere on the cube and hold it. And so I've got my mouse button depressed now, so I'm holding it, and I can now freeform just move and rotate this anywhere I want. Okay, so we can pop that around to however we want. If you get too out of whack, there's this little house button here. I click on that, and that will change me back to what is known as the home view. And you can set the home view by right-clicking on the Viewcube, and there's an option here to set the current view as home, and I've already done that on here. We can also change it to a perspective mode, and there's also some settings here that we can go into to control the size and appearance of the Viewcube. All right, so kind of something you can kind of play with. I think a lot of users are going to have a lot better luck working with that than they had with the orbit command. All right, so that was one 3D viewing option. The other one I want to show is this little button down here on our status bar brings up a utility called the steering wheel. So let me go ahead and click on that button. And what we get is this little item shows up wherever your cursors are. So let me move it off to the side here. And it has all these different commands that you can use to control your visual display. Okay, one of the things we saw with the Viewcube is it kind of rotated about kind of an arbitrary center point. Well, with the steering wheel, I have an option to set the center. So let me put my cursor where I want the center to be, and then I'm going to click on the center and then lock it in, and that'll move that point to the center. So now I'm going to come over here on my steering wheel. I'm going to pick the orbit command, and I'm going to hold my mouse button, and we'll see now it orbits about that point that I had selected. And you'll see that the Viewcube is also moving with it. Okay, so that is the orbit option. I can zoom in and out, so I'll click on zoom and hold it, and it will zoom in on wherever my cursor was, so that makes it real nice to work around. We can pan, so let me go back to the pan mode, and that lets me slide my sight from side to side. Okay, I've also got another one on here, if I can find it, that I want to look. Okay, let me get this to where, there it is, so you can see it on the screen. This option is called Look, and what that does is it holds your camera at a single location and lets you pivot your point or what your target is. So Orbit rotates about the center point, Look rotates about the camera point. Okay. All right, let me go back through. If you want to back up where you were, there's a rewind option here, so let me pick on that, and I can actually then slide my cursor to the left here, and it will back me through to where I originally started. Okay, so I'm going to come back to here, and then what I'm going to do is there's this item here called Walk, and I'll pick on that, and it lets me walk through my model, and I need to get a little bit closer here, so let me go to zoom. All right, and now let's try walk. Okay, the further I get my arrow away from that green circle in the middle of my screen, it will go faster, whereas if I hold it closer, it will slow it down. And then we'll go ahead and pull it away here so you see it'll pick up and go a lot faster. Okay, so that's the walkthrough option. So kind of just give you an idea of different functionality on here. And again, I can rewind and back up to a point I liked. Okay, little arrow button on the bottom right corner of my steering wheel will bring up a menu of options for the steering wheel. Steering wheel settings, let me go into that. Here's where you can control the size and opacity of the steering wheel, so I can make it a lot bolder, a lot darker, so you can maybe see it a little bit better in the presentation. And also for the walkthrough tool, I found, I think the default speed is somewhere around 5, and I usually go flying off the screen. I've got mine set down to about 1, which gives me a little bit more control over how fast that walkthrough motion goes. So let me go ahead and pick OK to that. So you can see I made it a little bit, changing the opacity makes it a little bit easier for you to see it in the presentation. They also have a couple of different basic wheels that might be a little bit easier depending on what you want to do. So I'm going to show you the object wheel. So you can see that's only got a few commands. It's got center, zoom, and rewind. So what I can do is center. I can say center on that point right there. And then I can zoom, and it will zoom in on my center point. Okay, so I'll let my preview catch up, and then I can pull back on my mouse, and it zooms back out. So real simple. The other one that they have is the tour building wheel, kind of geared more towards the architectural. I've got a look option where, again, I can turn my head and look around on my site. And I also have a forward option, which lets me zoom in on something. So say I want to look at this curve point right here. I will put my cursor there, and then when I click and hold, I get this little zoom in option, and I can zoom in to that point, look at my curve. And again, I apologize for the render quality that my video display does. That's actually a good clean 6-inch curve when rendered properly. All right, and then I can pull my mouse back to zoom out, so I can say, well, maybe I want to look at this curve over here. I'll put my mouse where I want to look, click, and then I can zoom in, inspect it, and then zoom back out. Or if I zoom in and let go of my mouse, I will stay zoomed in on that point. All right, so when we're done with this, we'll click that little button, close it down. That's all the different viewing options. So let me close this drawing down. I'm not going to save that, but let me get through that. So far, so good. That's the part of my presentation. I usually crash my AutoCAD, again, because of the video display on my laptop. All right, just to see who's awake, I'm going to do a little poll here. So we're going to do a little sampling here. So those of you who are surfing the internet right now, you might want to come back over here. And what I want to know is, how fast do you think you can attach 8 XREF drawings, and not only just attach them, but I also want them inserted on the Nolte standard XREF layer. All right, so hurry up and vote on that. So hopefully not too much thought on there. Okay, boy, some of you are pretty quick. All right, almost done here. All right, I'm going to close the poll. So if you didn't vote, you don't get to say. So here we go. So most, see here, 27% of you out of how many we've got signed up. I've got 23 attendees. So it's about 5 of you, I'm guessing, think you can do that in under 5 minutes. So hopefully you guys are working in one of my offices and working on one of my projects would be nice. Some people think 1 to 3 minutes. About a third are 2 to 8 minutes, and then there's 1 or 2 of you who think that I'm going to have one of those first guys do it for me because I'm real slow. All right, so let me hide that and go back to my presentation. So what I want to show now is a new tool in 2009 called the Action Recorder, and I'm going to do it off the ribbon panel here to kind of entice you to use the ribbons in Autodesk. And I'm on the Tools palette here in the ribbon panel, so I'm on the Tools tab, and it's this item here called Action Recorder, and what it does is it records commands and sequences of commands that you do so you can play them back at a later date. So I'm doing this presentation on the premise that I'm setting up plan and profile sheet drawing. So I've got my drawing here. I'm in my IP05 drawing. It's my plan profile 5. I've already set up previous sheets, and what I did is I recorded what I did when I set those sheets up, so that when I come to this sheet, all I have to do is come in here, and I've got a macro called XREF attach. Okay. If I expand on the palette here, this little button, I'll go ahead and expand that, and it switched my macro. There it goes. So I've got this XREF, and you see the first thing it's going to do is it's going to create a layer. It's going to create my XREF layer. It's going to set it current, and then I'm going to use the XR macro, which is actually one of our Nolte tools macros, but as long as the macro is loaded and running when you run the action recorder, it will function just like any other command. I zoom once to make sure I'm on my site, so we zoom extents, attach all the other XREFs, and we're done. So to show you how that works, I'm going to hit the play button, and it will fire through that, and somebody time me. So I did that about 7 seconds. I got 8 XREFs attached. For those of you who were taking 3 to 8 minutes, you do 3 to 8 minutes on the first one, you record it, and then on all the subsequent files, you hit the play button, and it will play that back. All right, so that's my first macro I did. So let me jump over to my layout now, and I want to put in my title block and set up a couple of viewports. All right, again, keeping in mind in your head, I got to attach my title blocks, XREF one piece, I insert the other. I want to make sure they're on the right layer. I want to make a couple of viewports, and I want to set my viewports to 20 scale. All right, so that's this one here. So I got this, puts in a 22 by 34 sheet. All right, there we are. I'm going to turn off the file dialog so it doesn't prompt me for the drawing names. I'm going to make my XR layer. I'm going to XREF my title block. I'll zoom extents. I'll set layer 0 current, and then I will attach my title block insert information. It goes through and doesn't put anything in for the attributes, so that's what all those enters are. Then I'll do my viewport layer. I'll make sure it's a no plot layer. And then I'll set up my viewports, and then I'll use the MV setup command to set them all to 20 scale, and then regen all. So that's what it's going to do. Hit the play button, and we are done. So again, several seconds to do something that it normally takes me a couple minutes every time I do it. So you record it once and then you go. So let me show you how that's done. So I've got a couple of viewports here, and let me double click on that. So what I'm going to do is, the example I'm going to use is I'm going to place my north arrow. Okay, so to do this, I'm going to come in and I want to actually record now the sequence of commands. So I'm going to use record. All right, so now it turns kind of a pinkish color to let me know that I'm in record mode, and I also get a little red circle record icon with my crosshairs. One of the things I have found with the recording function is the more command line commands I do, the more automated I can make it. So let me start off. I'm going to make a layer. So I'm going to do -LA gives me the command line version, and I'm going to do M for make, and I'm going to do -TX03. So that's going to make my TX03 layer. I'm going to do C for color, and we make that color 3 and -TX03. What I found is by actually typing in the values, I can go back later and edit my recorded actions to apply this to other values. So I'm going to go ahead and hit enter for that. And what you'll see is over on the action recorder here, it's recording everything that I've typed in and everything that I've done. All right, so I'm done with the layer command. All right, so I'm back to the command prompt. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to insert my block, and I'm going to just use the dialog box here for insert. So I'm going to do insert, and I'm going to find my north arrow, so it's N arrow, and my drawing is set to 20 scale. I'm doing uniform, and I'm going to insert it by picking a point on the screen. So we'll just stick it over here. So there's my north arrow, and then I'm going to finish this off is I want to bring it into my models, or excuse me, my paper space environment so I can move it around on my drawing. So I'm going to use, there's a change space command. I think it's an express tool command, and I'm going to do L for my last object, and then hit return, and then my source viewport is my current viewport, so I'll hit enter, and that moves it now to model space. So let me stop recording. Okay, and we'll just say, we'll call this north arrow. The names cannot have spaces because it's actually going to save this as a file. Here's the path in your C drive where it's saving them. We also have a folder on the Q drive. We can save these, so if you come up with some macros that are good for the entire office, they can be made available off your Q drive. All right, so we'll pick OK to that, and it'll save it, and just let me grip edit this. All right, so we can see that that did copy to model space. So let me throw another one in here. So now let's play it back so you can see how it works. So I'm going to play. And again, by using a dialog, the routine is going to present me with a dialog, and then at that point I need to do something here. So I'm going to say, well, just to show what I can do is I'll say do this one at 30, pick OK, and it finishes the command out. It knows where to insert it. Okay, so again, I've now got a 30 scale version of my north arrow. All right, let me do it one more time real quick here, and I'm going to do it a little bit different. I'm not going to mess with the layers at this time since I got my layer. So I'm just going to do the -insert command, and I'm going to do my block. Okay, and again, I very rarely take the default. I want to type it in, and insertion point we'll put right there, and scale of 20, and I'll use the same scale for Y and a rotation of 0, and then I'll use my change space command last. And then I'm done recording it. So let me stop recording that one. We'll call this one arrow 2. All right, so it's done saving that one. And then I'll come in here again to play that back. We'll click on it, and we'll see this one now plays back without prompting me for anything. So that's what's nice about having the dialogue there. All right, well, what if I have a viewport here where maybe I want to be down on this area here. Maybe we want to rotate a little bit. And we'll call that good. Oops, that's rotated way too much. Whatever, you get the idea. Let me set my scale back to 20. There we go. All right. So I want to place it at a different location. Well, I can come over here in my action recorder, and I can right-click on where I specified the coordinate, and I can tell it, instead of using this coordinate, request user input. So we'll go ahead and click that on. So now when I play it, it will go through and it's going to ask me, it's going to change my view. It doesn't like my viewport, so it'll change my view back. And now it's on the, hey, this command wants user input. I'm going to go ahead and provide user input. All right, I will pick a point on my screen, and it will pop back. Okay, the only problem is it does, there's my north arrow, moved it around here. Okay, so if I find that back, it does get kind of messy dealing with the viewport twist there, and I haven't figured out myself yet how to not do that, but I am able to modify these to either prompt for user input, or I can come in and change my scale. So maybe I wanted 30 scale on that, so we'll come back into this viewport and play, and I'm going to use the recorded value here, and now I got my arrow at 30 scale. Okay, copy to my viewport. So kind of give you an idea of how the recorded macros work. Again, use them with command line commands, because doing the command line commands, I can then come in here and modify them to either request user input, or I can edit them and change the values. If I can change that back to 20, and have a little bit more control as opposed to waiting for somebody to respond to a dialogue. All right, so that's Action Recorder. Pretty neat tool. For those of you who don't do any customization or programming, a great way for you to record some repetitive steps and create some automation without having to do any Autolisp or VBA. All right, I have a drawing now for, let me go back. I'm going to do some labeling here. So I'm going to go back to my Sheet 4 drawing here, just because I know this one works. All right, what we're going to look at right now is a couple of things. I'm going to show you what's called Annotative Text, and it's some functionality that they've applied to text, dimensions, and leadering, where I can control my text height based on the view scale. All right, so we're set this drawing up. I've got two viewports here. So I'm going to click into the viewport on the left, and we'll see I've got that viewport scale down at the bottom here is set to 1 to 50, and when I go into the right viewport, it's set to 1 to 10. So I got a little bit more detail where this circle is here, or this little turnout is. There's a big oak tree that sits right there on the site. All right, so let me go into model space so I can do my drafting work. And what I want to do is go into my Annotate tab here in my ribbon bar. And it's a real nice tool because I've got, here's my text with my styles, my dimensioning with the style, my multi-leaders, which I'll introduce, and also we have tabling here, all of our main annotation functionality. And what you'll see on my styles, they all have this little scale icon on here on all three of these, and that indicates that those styles are an annotative style. I'm also proposing that for Nolte Standard, we suffix any of the annotative names with an A, so we know that that's an annotative style. And let me go into the text style dialog to show how this is set up. So if I pick on my L100 font, which is what we're used to using, we would know for 50 scale drawing, I set that to be 5 feet high, which means I have to do the math. Well, for an annotative font, the way that works is we toggle on this annotative option. We then specify the height for our paper space units. So an L100 is 1/10 of an inch high, so we put in 0.1. AutoCAD will then take that times whatever our drawing scale is and use that to control the text size. All right, so let me cancel on that. Same thing on our dimension styles. Let me go into my dimension style and modify that. And then what you'll see is on the Fit tab here for dimensions, there is also an annotative option here. And just what we need to make sure is that for our text, we're using an annotative text style, so it will size properly. And then all of our symbols and arrows, all of the sizes are in plotted dimensions, so our inch dimensions of our paper space area. Okay, so everything is set up based on paper space inches, And then on the Fit tab, we said make this one annotative. All right. If you don't want to use annotative, we still can go back and create styles where we specify the scale. All right, so I'm going to do some drafting here, some labeling. I'm going to start off with my 50 scale. So I'm going to change my annotation scale to 50, and I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to put in some Mtext. And I'm old school, I still like typing. So I'm going to place my Mtext here, and we're going to say C detail 1. Yep. And let me turn on background mask here. And click OK to that. All right, so I now have my text, and this is set up now. If we look at our buttons down here, it's drawing it based at a 50 scale. This button adjacent to it to the right says show all annotation objects irregardless of what scale they were created for. And then this button here I have turned off because if this one is on, it will automatically add the scales to every annotation object when I change my scale here. So I want to make sure that one is turned off. So let me change this annotation scale to 1 to 10 now, and because of visibility, this one still shows up here, but if I turn this off, it will only show me annotation that I've done at 10 scale. So if I change it back to 1 to 50, all my 1 to 50 annotation will show up, all my 1 to 10 will disappear. All right. I also want to point out, if when I made the change, you'll notice that my line types are changing. So my line type patterns, what I've done is, if we'll look here, LT scale is set to 1 for paper space, and there's a new variable called MSLT scale, which is now turned on just like PSLT scale. And what this does is it will scale all my line types based on the annotation scale. So I can now, as I change my annotation scale, I can see my line types change as well. All right, well, let me do a couple more labels here at 50 scale. What I'm going to do, this is my water plan, so I'm going to put in some notes here for my water meters here. And I'm actually going to use this multi-liter functionality as a new tool in 2009. And they've got this item here called a multi-liter. I'm going to use my water note. And let me go into my settings for that real quick. Very similar to dimension styles, but it's only liters. So I can control my liter format. It's straight, it's red. I can do splined liters. Liter structure, how many points do I want to have in my liter? I'm going to limit these. You can only pick 2 points. All right. And then the content, I'm going to insert a block. I have a block called circle, and we're going to put this tag value in the middle of the block. All right, so we'll close that down. So I'm going to add a multi-liter, nice big button here, and I'm going to just drag one off of that meter. And I don't know, meters are going to be 8. All right, and I apologize, my arrowheads on my display don't show up unless I do a regen here. All right, so there's 8, and I'm going to label this one out. It's real close, so I'm going to use this next button over here, which will add a liter to an existing multi-liter object. So let me click on that, pick my object, and then say I want my arrow pointing to there, and you'll see I can come in. If I want to point all the way over to here, I can. All right. And I now have a double-headed, double-litered, multi-liter. So let me come back in. I'll do the same thing on this one here, and we'll call that an 8. And then I'm going to say add in additional off of there. Okay, so I can label those. So I'm going to go through and I can label a whole bunch of other stuff here. Maybe I'll come over here while I'm doing multi-liters, and let's label some valves. I'll say pull off of here. I don't know, valves are going to be referenced by note 3. And got a T there, that's going to be note 2. And we'll pull another one off this valve here. And that one will be a note 3 also as well. And let me regen to get my stupid little arrowheads to show up for us. There we go. All right, so I can place these in. A couple other neat functions about multi-liters now is this next button over here. We can now align several multi-leaders. So I'm going to say align, I'm going to say take these three because I made them real sloppy. All right, and I want to align them relative to this one here. And then what you'll see is I get this little rubber band line. So I'm going to turn ortho on. So as I pull this up and pick, I get now some really nice straight drafted leadering here. It makes a real pretty drawing. All right, let me do that one more time. And again, I'll pick all three of these. All right. And on my command line now, I have an options option. So I'll type O for options. And a couple of things I can do is I can make the leader segments parallel. So I can say make all of these leader lines parallel. I don't want to do this here because it'll be too cluttered. Or I can say distribute them. And so and then as I pick them now, I can control and distribute them, and I can get even spacing on them. So I can get a little bit more control on that. Okay, so a lot of neat functions for making my drafting look a little bit prettier. If I click one of these, I do get grips on it where I can grab and move the whole landing. Okay, and I have ortho on right now, so that's why I'm keeping them in the same spot. And I can also change the length of my landing by grip editing either end. I can change the length of that. Okay, so we'll leave it nice and pretty like that. And then the last thing I want to show here for multi-leaders is the final button here called Collect. And what I may want to do is say, you know, these two labels here are real close together. Let's collect them into a single leader here. So I'm going to go ahead and pick Collect, and it will collect them into whichever one you pick first. So I'm going to go ahead and pick this one first, and then I'll pick that one. Hit return, and I now have, let me turn ortho off here, and I now have a new, oh, I lied, it took my second one. So it's going to take the whichever one you pick second, but it will combine both of those symbols now into a single leader. And then what I'll do is I'll just grip edit and kind of point to the middle there. All right, so we now have those placed in there. So that's all the annotation I'm going to do right now at 50 scale. All right, so we've been working at 50 scale. Let me zoom back into this area here, and I want to do a few more, but I want to do it 10 scale for my drawing here. So let me change this to 10. Okay, and all my 50 scale dimensioning goes away, but I've kind of like to see these 2 meters labeled both at 10 scale and 50 scale. So I'm going to, for the moment, turn back on this visibility option here, which will show me all visibility. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this multi-leader here, and then they've got a big button up here on my ribbon panel to add current scale. So let me click on that, and we'll now add that leader to my current scale, and I can actually come in and grip edit and move. And it'll change the 10 scale version independent of my 50 scale version. So let me hit escape. All right, so now when I switch back to 50 scale, there's the 50 scale labels, and let me turn off visibility here, and then let me change back to 10 scale, and there's the 10 scale version. Okay, the same information in here. If I come in and modify this and say this is actually now 12, all right, so that is 12, and then let me go back to 50 scale. All right, you'll see exact same value, same label and everything. So real nice, lets us have a little bit more control. All right, so let me throw in a little bit of some annotation here. So I'm going to do, we'll do a radius dimension on my arc here. All right, so I'm just throwing in some of my 10 scale, and maybe I want to see, we'll throw that one there. Maybe I'll do a distance from here to my pipe, and we'll throw that in. Maybe throw in some leaders for my pipe bends. And that's going to be referring to note 10, and so on. So you kind of get the idea of what's going on here. So I can do all my labeling at 10 scale, and then I can do my labeling at 50 scale. All right, so when I go back now to my layout, because of this, we'll see my viewport scales are set up. So on the left viewport here, we'll see all my annotation shows up for only the 50 scale based on my viewport. And then this viewport over here shows just the 10 scale annotation. All right, so hopefully that's enough to get you kind of interested in that. And I can see right now that I am overly optimistic on how much I can show you guys. All right, so we're going to jump over and we'll look at some Mtext items here. So let me go back into my master folder, and I just have some demo drawings here for doing Mtext. And I think what I'll do is I'm going to leave out the table portion of the session here, possibly, I don't know, 17 minutes. I might be able to squeeze it in. All right, let's look at Mtext. All right, a couple of things that's real neat, and this is both text and Mtext, is AutoCAD now highlights misspelled words just like we're used to in Microsoft Word. So I get this dashed red line indicating things that it doesn't know how to spell. Okay, so it wants preventer. Up here I fat fingered it and I spelled construction wrong. So what I can do is I can pick on it and right click, and it'll actually give me suggestions, just like in Microsoft Word, of correct spellings, and there's a whole bunch of other words. Or I can actually add it to my private dictionary if that's the way I always want to spell construction. I don't, so I'm going to click the first one here, and that will correct my spelling for me. So real nice. Clean out, on the other hand, is maybe a word I want to keep in here, so I'll say we'll add that to my dictionary. So from this point on, clean out is a single word. Maybe APWA is one I want to keep, so we'll add that to dictionary. Okay, so you kind of get the idea of the way that works. So that is our spell check functionality. All right, so let me find my Mtext. Let me apologize for bumping this around a bit. Let me go back into my editor. A couple of new things you're going to see on your editor toolbar, and hopefully you can see that right here on my screen. I kind of have it hidden over my other toolbars. Is there's now a button here where we can do columns, and I'm going to start off. I'm going to do what's called a dynamic auto height column. So we'll pick OK to that. Let me zoom out just a little bit. All right. With dynamic columns turned on, I get this little double arrow slider here, and what will happen is as I start compressing my height, it will wrap and expand to additional columns. So what I'm seeing with this is I potentially could do an entire sheet of general notes as a single column. All right. On my ruler bar here, I can change the width of my columns. Okay, and I can use the outer arrows here to change what's called the gutter, which is the space between the columns. All right, so this is the auto height, and what this does is it sets them all to the same height. I can also do what's called manual height, and this one allows me to grip and stretch each one independent, and I can make them all sorts of different heights. Okay, so maybe I have an image here or a detail I need to keep a certain space around. Okay, the other column options are static columns, where I can say just force it to 2 columns, and here's how tall they're going to be, and you'll see it's going to force it over the edge here, and I have to keep track of that. All right, so that's all the column functions, and my text got a little wide. All right, and one last item I want to show on here is paragraph formatting, and that's going to be this button right here, so I can modify paragraphs now. And the thing I like is I can now do spacing between my paragraphs, so instead of having to put in a blank line between every one of my notes, I can add in some spacing, and we'll go rather large here. I'll go 8 units here, and we'll see I get now nice big gaps between all my paragraphs, and it makes it a little bit easier to read. So I can now control that with paragraph formatting, as opposed to having to go in and add in a bunch of blank spaces. And if you run out of room, I can go back in and change that gap and make it a little bit narrower, and I can squeeze more text in. All right, so that was it for Mtext, and we're flying through here. 15 minutes left on the clock. And I can't get on my open button. All right, we'll type it in. All right, Mtext, let me look at some dimensioning. There we go. For some reason, my cursor got hijacked by a GoToMeeting. All right, dimensioning real quick, 3 things I'm going to show here. With radial dimensions now, so let me do a radius dimension on here, and we'll just place it right there. But you'll see as I pull it off the arc, we now get a radial extension line, so we no longer have to do our radius dimensions or diameter dimensions directly to the arc. We can now pull that off and have this radial extension line. Zipping around here, we'll come over here, pop this guy, pop it down. I can now add a jog to a dimension line. So if you're measuring a real large distance, like the little picture shows, and I have a broken line that I'm dimensioning, I can now put a jog in my dimension line. So let me go ahead and add one to this one here. We'll place it right there. And I now can have a jog, and I can grip edit that and move it anywhere I want on the line. Okay, to get rid of it, I run the jog command, R for remove, pick my dimension line, and it removes the jog for me. All right, pretty cool stuff. Final one for dimensioning now is this button right here, which allows me to break dimension lines. So let me go ahead and select on that. And what I want to do is I want to break this line, and then my options are to do what's called an automatic, where it'll figure out everywhere it crosses something, it will break it. Or I can just select. So I can say, well, I want to break this one I've selected, but I want to break it where it intersects that one. So I'll go ahead and click OK to that, or pick on that, and then you'll see it adds a nice gap for me where it broke. Okay, and this even works with my associative dimensioning. This drawing set up to be labeled both at 40 scale and at 20 scale. So when I go to my 20 scale mode, you see I actually get a 20 scale gap. So the gap sizes even change as I modify here. All right, last one I want to show, apologize for my zooming here, is on the break. I'm going to break this dimension now, and this time I'm going to do what's called automatic, so I can just hit enter for auto, and it'll actually break everywhere it crosses another object. All right, so hopefully you can see that, and this is actually a dynamic function, so let me move this hole, and it heals the line. Let me move it back. All right, and then as I move it around, all those gaps, because it's an automatic break option, it will automatically clean itself up as I move my objects around or as I edit my drawing. So pretty neat, neat tools there for us. All right, so that's on the dimensioning. All right, you know, I actually might make this here. All right, so we looked at our dimension options. I'm going to look at tables now. Show you a few new things with tables here. So let me go in. I've got a drawing here with some tables, and that would be alphabetic by table. All right. As soon as that gets in. Okay. A couple things I want to show. If I click in a cell, they've finally fixed. Oops, I didn't want to go all the way in. They finally fixed now the column and row headers show up now in Land Desktop and Civil 3D. Those were actually available in 2007, but they were broken in anything that was running AutoCAD Map 3D, which included our Land Desktop product. So they got that work fixed for us now, so we can see those. I'm actually going to grab these two columns, and one of the things you're going to see are these two cells is I get a new grip now on the bottom right corner, and this is called an autofill. So just like you do in Microsoft Excel, I can grab that, and as I pull it down, you'll see it'll count out for me. So I can go down to number 5, click, and it will then fill in based on that recurring pattern. It will go down and fill in table number 5 for me. So that's kind of a nice feature. Moving my way across to my demo here. Some formatting options. Let me grab all of these cells here. All right, and I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to go into formatting. So there's data format, and what they've done is they've now added in currency and additional date formatting functions. So I can actually now say I want to use currency. I can set my precision. I can pick my monetary symbol. All right, I'm going to use dollar signs, and I'm going to go over to additional format, and I just want to make sure I'm using commas for my thousands, and we'll pick OK to that, and pick OK, and that'll then format them based on that. So now when I come in here and apply my formula, and we're going to say B3 times C3, all right, we'll zoom in, and we'll now see that that's got my nice dollar sign. Apologize for the background here. Let me go ahead and hide those. Display. I forgot where my background, there it is. All right, so make that a little bit easier. And then I can also have my autofill grip here, so I can click and drag and fill those in. And then I'll finish up my table here by inserting a formula. And we'll do the sum, and I'm going to do those cells there. And pick OK. All right, there's my total. I'm not going to worry about it. I guess I can format that. For some reason, when I go to data format now, my options are grayed out. So I have to do it the old-fashioned way and type in the $sign here and pick OK to that, set it to 2. All right, now I go back in, it'll be currency formatting. But the last thing I want to show on this table now is in our table styles, the style dialog has been modified. So I'm actually looking at my material. No, which table am I looking at here? One of these, I think. So I'll go back to modify here. And we can now create our own cell styles. So in 2007, you just had these three. I can actually create my own cell styles and add different line types and characters here. And what I'll do on this table here is I'm going to grab this last row and right click, and I have the cell style option here where I can come in and pick one of my styles. So you've got the 3 defaults, but then I've got this one I made called total, and we'll hit okay, pick that one. And what it did is it added in this nice little double line across the top there, so I can now have that formatting on my table. So I can go in and apply by column, by row, different styles of format instead of having to use just the data formatting that's available there. All right, moving along here. So we looked at formatting, breaking tables. All right, I got this big long table. It won't fit in my view, so I'm going to grip edit this. And what you'll see is a new grip down at the bottom of the table, and it's called a table breaking grip. I'm going to pick on that, and as I drag up, it will add a second portion of my table over here to the right. Okay, and I can control this just by picking on this grip. All right, and it's similar to what I was doing with my Mtext in the columns, but I can do this with the tables. With it selected, I'm going to go into my properties dialog here, and there's this portion here of the properties which lets you control how the break behaves. So I can turn it off. I can control which side, right, left, or down. I can repeat the headers, so if I set that to no, you'll see the headers go away over on the repeat. Well, I'd like to see those, so we'll set that back to yes. If you have bottom headers, you can repeat those. I can change where the break height is, and I can also change the spacing between them. So maybe I want that to only be 20 units. I can pull those actually closer to each other. All right, so that's all controlled through the properties here. All right, so let me escape that. So there's my split tables. All right, 4 minutes and counting. What we're look at now, we'll probably finish up with today, and I unfortunately won't get to the PDF extension, so I'll make sure I do some videos on that and some other training. But I want to look how we can link now to Excel spreadsheets. All right, so I've already linked this table. What I'm going to do is create a second table very similar to that we're going to link. All right, I'm going to start off on my tables tool palette here, and there's a button here to create what's called a data link. All right, so what we're going to do is I've actually got an Excel spreadsheet here. So there's my spreadsheet. That's what it looks like. It's real simple. It's got a title, column headers, values, and a total. All right, so we're coming to our drawing, and I'm going to create a link to that table. So we'll just call it training link. Pick OK to that. And there we go. So I need to tell it which file I want to link to. So I'm going to browse. I've got it in my estimates folder for my project under documents. So I'm going to select my material table spreadsheet. We'll open that up. All right, so it's got to read all that data. I'm going to store the full path. I'm going to tell it which sheet in my spreadsheet. So I've got 2 sheets to use. I made a copy of it, so I'm going to use the first sheet. I'm going to go ahead and link to the entire sheet since that's the only thing in there, but you can use named ranges or you can specify a range that you want to use. And there's a preview of what that would look like in AutoCAD. So we'll go ahead and pick OK to that, and then we'll pick OK to that. So that's part one. That creates the link to the spreadsheet. The next step now is to create a table from the link. So I'm going to use my table command, and in that dialog, I'm going to come in, I'm going to use a material table style. And instead of starting from the style, I'm actually going to start from my data link, and I'm going to use that link we just made called training. Okay, and I'm going to specify an insertion point. So you can see since it's based on the spreadsheet, I don't have any of the other options available to me. So we'll go ahead and pick OK to that, and we'll place it here. All right, and it comes in real small and tiny. What I need to do is pick on it and right-click, and there's an option here to remove all property overrides. So what it did is it copied all the properties from Excel and used them to create my table. So I'm going to remove all of those. Okay, and let me zoom out and bring that back to where we can see it. All right, so there's my table linked to the spreadsheet. So the way this works now, say if I go in to my spreadsheet and change item A, instead of being 200, we're going to have 1,000 of those. And we'll save. All right, come back into my drawing. AutoCAD is going to recognize, just like when an XREF changes, it's going to say, hey, your source data has changed. Do you want to update these tables? So I'll go ahead and click on the update, and it'll go through, and it's actually going to update both tables because they're linked to the same spreadsheet. So it linked updated the first table, and then it just updated the second table. So we now have our quantity of 1,000 times our price, and there's our final value. Okay, I cannot edit these tables. If you see, if I pick on a cell, I do get a little icon that indicates the table is locked, and it also has that little chain icon indicating that it's linked back to the database. So I'm kind of stuck with that. I can unlock everything with this by selecting the cells, coming up here and unlock it. Okay, and I've actually got a Lisp routine that I can remove all of the text formatting so I can display it as simplex. But the problem with doing that is if I ever select my table, actually I'll pick one of the cells in the table and go to data link and tell it to update or change from the source, it will reapply the text formatting from the Excel spreadsheet. Okay, I haven't played with this too successfully, but I can also edit the data in the table and then upload those changes back to the source file. And I've been hit and miss on whether I can get that to work right. I've been using this option mainly where I can say, well, open up my spreadsheet directly. So I'm going to say edit the data. Oh, that was edit the data link. I can't read here. Apologize for that. I'm going to come in here, and I can actually open the data link file, and it'll actually open up my spreadsheet for me. This is where I've been making my edits, and when I'm done, I save it, and then it'll say, hey, that's changed, and then it'll update my table for me. All right, one more I wanted to show, but I am at my 1 hour and 55-second time limit, so that's fine. Hopefully you got an idea on this. The other one I was going to show was a feature called data extraction, where, and it's this button here on our tables toolbar, so we'll make that another presentation for later on, and that allows you to query blocks and objects in your drawing and create tables. So if I add more blocks, it will actually update the tables, allowing you to do kind of a quick material schedule or quantity takeoff based on the objects in the drawing. And we also have an option to link that to some spreadsheets as well. All right, well, hours fly by when you're doing this, so hopefully you guys saw stuff that you liked, that are more eager than ever to get upgraded to the 2009 products. Submit questions if you want. I will reply via email to everybody that attended, since I don't have time to finish that up. There is a exit survey again, just like last time, very similar to the Nolte training evaluation, and the final question on there asks about everything that you saw and everything that you may have seen in the handout. Which items do you feel you would really see taking advantage of once you get upgraded. Because what I'm looking for is, since I can't teach everything in 2 hours, I need to filter this down just a little bit for when I travel to the offices to do the live session. So I want to get a little bit better detail, better idea of what the top items are. All right, well, that's all I have. I want to thank you all for attending today. Hopefully it's been good for you, and we'll see you when I travel to your offices in the next month or two. Thank you very much.